Welcome back, everybody. Hope you all had a great holiday season. We're starting off the new year with a deep dive into a story that's both captivating and, tragic.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that just grabs you.
Right. And it's about sudden wealth and shattered dreams.
And a mystery.
Oh, yeah, big time. A mystery that ends with, well, you're not going to believe this.
A man buried under 9 feet of concrete. That's a wild one.
That's right. Abraham Shakespeare. Maybe you've heard of him.
This case, it's something else.
What?
I mean, it really goes beyond the typical lottery curse narrative. You know what I mean?
What? Yeah.
It gets into the psychology of instant wealth, like how it can make you vulnerable.
And then how people can take advantage.
Exactly.
So let's set the stage here. November 15th, 2006. Abraham Shakespeare, he's a hardworking guy, living a pretty modest life,
Just your average everyday guy.
And then, picture this, he stops at a convenience store.
In frostproof Florida.
Right. Not even to buy a lottery ticket. He's actually doing a favor for his coworker, Michael Ford. Michael's the one buying the tickets.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? And guess what?
He ends up winning.
He ends up with the winning ticket. Can you believe that?
Talk about fate, huh?
A Florida lotto drawing. $30 million. It's just crazy.
$30 million.
Yeah.
It boggles the mind. The odds of winning something like that,
Yeah.
that kind of money, it changes everything.
He goes for the lump sum, of course.
Yeah.
$17 million.
Smart move. Most financial advisors would agree with that.
But here's the thing. He didn't go crazy with spending. He bought a Nissan Altima.
Not exactly a Lamborghini, is it?
Right. A Rolex, but not from some fancy jewelry store. A pawn shop and, yeah, $1 million home, but nothing extravagant.
So he's not fitting the stereotype of a lottery winner, is he?
Not at all.
It really throws a wrench in our assumptions about how people react to winning big. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Well, there's this thing, right? It's called...
Sudden wealth syndrome.
Yeah, sudden wealth syndrome.
Not a clinical diagnosis or anything, but it describes what can happen when someone gets a huge windfall of cash.
Yeah, the emotional and psychological.
Exactly. It could be like a roller coaster.
Mhm.
Anxiety, guilt, fear, you name it. Even paranoia in some cases.
That makes sense, though, right? Suddenly everyone's your friend. Everyone wants something.
It's like you said, everyone wants a piece of the pie.
You start to wonder who you can really trust.
Yeah, who's genuine?
And that's where things start to go south for Shakespeare. Remember that coworker, Michael Ford?
The one who was buying the tickets?
Well, he turns around and claims that Shakespeare stole the winning ticket from him.
Oh, wow. That's rough.
Files a lawsuit. Wants a share of the jackpot.
That's gotta be devastating.
I know. Talk about adding insult to injury.
It's sad, but money has that effect on people sometimes.
It brings out the worst.
Greed, opportunism, it can really turn things ugly.
Shakespeare, though, he won that lawsuit.
Good for him.
But the whole experience, I think, it really shook him.
I can imagine.
He even said, quote, "I'd have been better off broke." Can you believe that?
That's powerful and really sad.
It really shows you the dark side of sudden wealth, all that isolation, that fear of being taken advantage of.
It can be so lonely, I think, even when you're surrounded by people.
It's that classic be careful what you wish for situation.
Exactly. You dream about winning big, but you don't think about the downside.
The whole baggage that comes with it.
Almost like the money itself is cursed.
Yeah, and for Shakespeare, that curse, well, it took a very specific form in the shape of a woman named Derise D.D. Moore.
B.D. Moore. Now, there's a name to remember. She's a key player in this whole story.
A key player, and you could say the beginning of the end for Abraham Shakespeare.
Buckle up, because this is where things get really interesting.
So D.D. Moore, who was she, and how did she even meet Abraham Shakespeare?
Oh, she was quite the character. Real smooth talker.
I bet.
And seemed like, she knew her way around business.
Oh, so Shakespeare probably saw her as someone who could help him out, right?
Definitely. I mean, Shakespeare, he's got all this money now, and he's got people coming at him from all sides.
And she comes in like, hey, I can handle this for you.
Exactly. She tells him, let's start a business together. Abraham Shakespeare, LLC. Sounds pretty legit, right?
Yeah.
And she convinces him to put all his money into this company.
Oh, man, I can see where this is going.
Classic financial abuse, preying on his vulnerability. Shakespeare, he's already feeling overwhelmed.
And she swoops right in.
Exactly. Becomes his lifeline. Or so he thought.
So what? She starts spending his money like crazy.
You got it. Hummer, Corvette, vacations, the whole 9 yards.
Oh, and she bought a truck, too.
No kidding. Didn't she try to say all that was gifts from Shakespeare?
That's what she claimed, but come on. Shakespeare was a simple guy. This guy was content with his Nissan Altima, remember?
Right. This doesn't sound like him at all.
It just didn't add up. big red flags there.
So how does this turn into a murder? How do we go from spending sprees to Shakespeare ending up buried under a slab of concrete? Well, here's where the story takes a really dark turn. It's April 2009, and poof, Shakespeare's gone. Vanished.
Just like that.
Pretty much. Months go by before his family even reports him missing.
What? Why so long?
I guess they figured, maybe he was trying to lay low, get away from all the craziness, the people hounding him for money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But, as the police start digging around, things get pretty suspicious.
So how do they end up at Moore's house? How do they find out she's involved?
Well, there was this tip. They knew something. They told the police about this house Moore had bought.
And they go there and...
They find Shakespeare buried in the backyard, under 9 feet of dirt in a concrete slab.
Oh, my God. That's horrible.
Chilling, isn't it? It wasn't just a random killing either. This was planned out, executed carefully.
So Moore, she tries to cover it up.
Right, absolutely. Tries to spin this whole web of lies.
Like what?
She's telling everyone Shakespeare's off on some trip. Texas, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Orlando, even that he's sick in a hospital, makes up all these stories.
But wouldn't people notice he's gone?
Well, she had a cell phone, sent texts to his family, his friends, pretending to be him.
Wait, but wasn't Shakespeare illiterate?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody who knew him believed those texts for a second. They didn't sound like him at all.
But what did she do when people started asking questions she couldn't answer?
She'd just go silent, disappear. And of course, that just made everyone more suspicious.
It's like she thought she could just keep up this act forever.
It's amazing, isn't it, the lengths she went to?
She was desperate.
Yeah, she even tried to bribe people to get rid of the body. Even offered a ton of money for someone to take the fall for the murder.
Can you believe that?
Talk about cold-blooded.
And desperate.
Absolutely. It shows you how far gone she was.
It's crazy. She really thought she'd get away with it all, huh?
It's unbelievable, right? Like she could just fool everyone forever. But I guess that's how these manipulative types operate. They think they're so much smarter than everyone else.
Yeah, well, she underestimated the cops, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, they were on her trail. And, like I said, those cracks in her story, they started to show.
So what about the trial? How'd that go down? Did she confess or what?
No confession. This was 2012 and more. She's sticking to her story. Claims it was self-defense, but the prosecutors, they had so much evidence.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, all those financial records and all her lies about where Shakespeare was.
Right, it was a mountain of evidence.
Yeah.
And then there were the people she tried to bribe.
They all testified, right?
You got it. The jury saw right through her act.
So what happened? What was the verdict?
Guilty. First-degree murder. Life in prison without parole. Oh, and they tacked on another 25 years minimum for having a gun during the crime.
Wow. So justice was served, but it doesn't bring Shakespeare back.
No, it doesn't. It's just so sad, He wins the lottery thinking it's going to change his life for the better.
And then he ends up betrayed and murdered by someone he trusted.
It's a stark reminder that money, it can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it doesn't always bring happiness. It can actually attract the worst kind of people.
Exactly. Predators. People looking to exploit you.
Shakespeare's story, it's definitely a cautionary tale. We all hear about the lottery curse, but this takes it to a whole other level.
It does make you think, right? What would you do if you suddenly came into a ton of money? Could you handle the pressure? The people coming out of the woodwork asking for handouts?
And how do you know who to trust,
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Well, more like the $17 million question in this case. This whole thing really makes you appreciate the importance of financial planning.
Absolutely. And being careful who you let into your life, who you trust.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into the tragic tale of Abraham Shakespeare.
A story of dreams.